What's going on YouTube? My name is Damien and welcome back to the Channelopoulos. Um, got a bit of a special episode for you today. This is going to be my first ever podcast where I both test and taste cigars and try out some whiskey. I'm thinking about calling this The Other Side of the Bar or something along those lines. Haven't decided on a name yet. Kind of wanted to go through this as a trial run, see if people like it, see if people even care or listen to it fully. So it's going to be a bit of a more long-term, long-form broadcast. It's going to be less editing, less cutting. So there's going to be a lot more ums and uhs in there. Just bear with me. I'm new to the long form talking. So in today's episode, I'm going to be smoking a Papas Fritas cigar by Drew Estate, and I'm going to be pairing that with TX whiskey, their straight bourbon. Going to be having that today with my cigar. So before we get started, let's go ahead and cut this and light it up. Yeah. Today I'm going to be going with a straight cut. We'll just cut a little bit off the top here. Make sure I got a good draw on it. I'm gonna take my fancy Swiss Army lighter. I call it that because this was given to me as a gift. This lighter's pretty awesome. It functions as a cigar rest, when you're not smoking. It also has a pop-out cigar rest, so you can share with a friend. On the bottom of that, there's a hole punch, so you can cut out a hole to draw from. It also has a poker, so you can poke through your cigar, get some extra airflow through, or towards the end of the cigar, whenever it starts getting to the very end, close to your fingertips, you can hold it kind of like a roach clip, so it doesn't burn your fingers. And last but not least, it is a torch lighter. So let's get the cigar lit up. What I kind of want to go over today is give you an introduction to who I am and what got me into the world of whiskey and cigars. Kind of give you a bit of a background, give you a little bit of information about both, and yeah, just kind of go from there. So what I'm going to do is light up my cigar. I'm going to toast the end. I'm not a huge whiskey or cigar snob, so if you want to follow along and do what I do, go ahead. There are some cigar and whiskey connoisseurs that are, oh, you gotta smoke it this way. Oh, you gotta do it this way. Find what works best for you and do it that way. I won't judge you one way or the other. But for me, I enjoy it most whenever I give it a nice toasting on the end, and then I don't know if you can see it, but if you blow on it just right, you can kind of see where it's lit, where it's not, and if you don't have it fully lit, you can go ahead and all right. So got that lit. Let's go ahead and pour our TX whiskey. how much of that smoke is appearing in front of me, so I'm going to move this out of the way. So, like I said, got their TX whiskeys, straight bourbon, and my Glencairn cast glass, rather. It's a good bourbon, Texas made. I got my iPad here in case I need to check some notes or anything. But there is the Firestone and Robertson distillery here in Fort Worth, Texas. If you ever get the chance, I definitely recommend you going out there and checking it out. They offer tours of the distillery, though due to the pandemic they slowed down and stopped giving actual tours, but you can go out to their facility. It's a distillery off of a golf course, and they give you a few tickets for you to try out some different whiskeys. I think one of the ones that I had was like a jalapeno infused one. I think there's like cactus ones and peach ones and stuff like that. Give you different flavors with your whiskey that you're drinking. But this, what I'm drinking tonight, is just a straight bourbon. Some smelling notes on it. I get hints of like vanilla, like a little bit of caramel. Yeah, some good, notes on it. It's an all around good whiskey. It's a nice bourbon. I think it's a good pairing. So yeah, what I really wanted to talk about today was, who I am, where I kind of come from, and what got me into the world of whiskey and cigars. So like I said at the beginning of the video, my name is Damien. I was born and raised in Midland, Texas. Spent most of my life there. Up until, just after college, when I moved out to the DFW area of Texas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And now I'm living in Fort Worth with my wife and child. And what kind of got me into the world of whiskey, growing up, turning 21, turning legal drinking age, everyone kind of has their like party stories and whatnot. And, people, get into drinking for different reasons, different ways or whatever. And, my original go-to drink was, like a Crown Royal and Coke, a Crown and Coke. And that's what I drank mostly for many years. If I ever went out to a restaurant or a bar, or if I was having something to eat and drink, that was my go-to. And there's nothing wrong with it. Don't get me wrong. I love Crown and Coke. That's my original go-to. But I just felt like it was lacking. I'd seen a lot of other people doing whiskey reviews, a lot of people talking about their experience with whiskey and what they liked and like the flavor notes, and I just never was getting any of that with it. I wasn't experiencing what all these other people were experiencing. One of my favorite YouTube channels, this isn't a promotion or a sponsor or anything, but one of my favorite whiskey channels is the Whiskey Tribe. and they cover all sorts of different whiskeys. They give excellent reviews. If you want to hop over there, go check out their channel. I don't blame you. But they're the ones that kind of like got me like really thinking about whiskey, really thinking about, the drinks that I'm, spending money on and everything. Um, so just about when the pandemic hit, um, I I think it was close to like St. Patrick's Day, like just when people were starting to kind of work from home. People were like, I don't think like the mask mandate had hit yet. But everyone was like slowly starting to work from home. People were kind of, being cautious and everything. Um, it was kind of close to St. Patrick's Day, and I remember thinking, what is Irish whiskey? What is that about? And I had watched some videos on that, and they were giving all these amazing notes of like, this tastes like a buttery biscuit and a sugar cookie, and all these notes. And I was like, I am not tasting that from a bottle of Canadian Dry Crown Royal whiskey. Like, I'm not experiencing that, and I really want to broaden my whiskey tastes. So I ended up going to a local. I think they might be a chain. I'm not sure. I'm not 100%. Total Wine and More. I went to the Total Wine and More over in Arlington, Texas, which is like a huge store that they do tastings. They have a few cigars, but they have wine, vodka, whiskey, pretty much anything you name it. They even have top end stuff. I think one of the most expensive bottles I've seen over there was like an XO whiskey, which was $10,000 or something, way up there, way out of my price range. So I ended up going over there, and of course it was close to St. Patrick's Day, so they were doing a lot of tastings um, for different Irish whiskeys, and the the person that I spoke with, the one giving out samples, was really had like a bunch of different like McAllens. Um, and I show up there in like shorts and like a raggedy t-shirt. So he was just kind of like, okay, here comes this guy. He's gonna take a sample and he's gonna bounce. Like, he's not interested at all. And I'm like, no, like I want to spend some money today. I want to try out Irish whiskey. I hadn't been too familiar with it at that point. And he's like, well, here's, here's a Jameson, here's, a lot of people's go-to, try this out. And I was like, okay, yeah, no, I like that. And then he's like, and then there's higher end. He's like, here's a Macallan 12, it's not top of the line or anything, but like, it's, a little bit more expensive. So I ended up trying that, and like the moment it touched my lips, it touched my taste buds, I fell in love with it. I was like, yes, I want a bottle of this. And like the look on the dude's face was kind of like, oh, you're serious about this? You want to buy a bottle? I was like, absolutely. I want to get into this. I want to try this out. What else would you recommend? He's like, well, if you don't want to spend too much more, he ended up pointing me in the direction of Slane, which is another Irish whiskey. It's a port cast whiskey, which they if you know anything about wines, port wines. It's like a sweeter wine. It's kind of like a dessert wine. Um, they barrel the whiskey in the barrels that were used to make port wines, and that's what they come up with is an Irish whiskey made in port cast barrels. So it's kind of a cheaper bottle. That one is like 20 to $30 maybe. So I ended up spending about $100 or so on that at that time, and after that my experience just took off essentially. Um, um, After that, I kind of I went down a rabbit hole of trying different Japanese whiskeys, which at the time were a little bit hard to find. Um, but after a while, I kind of realized that that wasn't really for me. I wasn't a huge fan of the Japanese whiskeys. In my opinion, in my personal opinion, if you ever get the chance, give them a try. But to me, I don't like that floral taste that you get from most of them. They're good and everything, but I want something darker. I don't want to be drinking flowers. That's kind of my thing. That's kind of what I want to avoid in that sense. So that's kind of where I started on my whiskey journey. You know, After that, anytime I'd get the chance, I'd have an extra $20 or $30. I'd go out and buy a bottle. Um, you're looking at me from this side. I'm looking at all the bottles that I have. I for 1 year for my birthday asked my family to all give me different whiskey bottles. Um, you know, One of my sisters gave me a 1729. My grandmother, one of the last things she bought for me, she's passed away now. My grandmother bought me Not Your Father's bourbon, which is like a vanilla bourbon. Um, my mom actually bought me like a book that went into detail about different whiskeys and like has like an actual flow chart and stuff on that. Um, so um, my collection started to grow. Anytime I'd get a chance, I'd go out and get another bottle. Have a couple bucks here and there. I'd work my way up, which is something that I tell people. We have friends and family come over to the bar, and they're like, "You have a pretty decent collection. That's a nice collection." And I'm like, "Yeah." I've had a couple people ask, how can I get my collection to that place? How do I get to that point? And I'm just like, buy one bottle at a time. Don't if you were to go out and buy what I have collected, it's gonna be like $1,000, $2,000. Like don't spend all that much all at once. Go out, maybe buy one bottle for like an everyday drink, and then buy one that you get for like special occasions. Like for me, the most I've ever spent on a bottle is my Johnny Walker Blue Label, which I think I spent too much for, around $250. That is a Scotch, and I only bust that out on like birthdays and very special occasions. Like I never touched that. As opposed to like my Four Roses whiskey, which is like my everyday drink. That's two different scales. I'll go out and buy more bottles of Four Roses or TX whiskey or Buffalo Trace or something like that. But something very special like Blue Label, or like I've got a Glenlivet up there, like a 12 year. Those I keep for special occasions, or if someone's coming over that I know is gonna like respect it and take take it neat, or something like that. I'll share with them, or I'll you know share the experience with them, right? Um, See what I tell you. There's going to be a lot of ums and uhs and kind of figuring out where I'm going with this. Uh, So with cigars, it was kind of a different story. It was a different experience. You know, I had tried a few cigars here and there. I honestly started off with like gas station cigars. Like the cigarellos, the the tipped ones, the wooden tipped ones. I can't think of the name right now, but uh, started off with those. And I was like, okay, this is a cigar. So essentially, whenever I turned 18, at the time that I turned 18, the legal smoking age in America was 18. I think they've increased it to 21. I'm not sure. I don't really follow on that. Um, but at the time, I turned 18, and the first thing I went out was bought lottery tickets and bought, cigarellos from a gas station. And just by looking at me, they did not card me the very first time. And I was like, oh man. And they were like, what? And I was like, I just turned 18. And they're like, oh, let me see your ID, mister. And I was like, all right, cool, here you go. So that wasn't the best of starts in the cigar world. Um, you know, I come from Midland, Texas. There's a couple cigar shops out there. Only really one of note that I care about or would go to. Um, I don't want to mention names or anything right now. Um, but there was one that I would go to and frequent a lot. Um, in one year, they had a Halloween costume contest, and you know, it essentially, like, the cigar place that I'm talking about had a cigar lounge, and they had like drink setups, but like they didn't serve alcohol. Like, you could bring, for me, I would bring a bottle of Crown, and you would say, "Hey, I need a setup," and they'd bring you a glass of ice and Coke, so you could have your Crown and Cokes or whatever. And right next door, there was a restaurant that you could order food from. Like, they would bring menus next door so you could eat, you could have your cigars, and then they would have like Coke and stuff. So you can have, kind of the best of both worlds. One year, this cigar shop had a costume contest for Halloween, and I went dressed up as this kind of like voodoo zombie. It was kind of thrown together. It was like old, like elementary school robes or whatever, with like this decent like $50 zombie mask. If I have a picture, I'll throw it up. Um, but I went dressed up as this like zombie voodoo thing. Like, I had this stick with a skull on it. It was, like I said, it was all thrown together. And the only other person there for the contest was this dude, and he was decked out. Like, if I remember, uh, the dude that follows Zorro around, I think that's who he was dressed up as. Um, in my mind, like thinking back, like I remember him looking like Captain Jack Sparrow, but that's not who he was. I believe he was, what is it, Tonto, I think. Um, yeah, it's kind of slipping me right now. But anyways, he looked amazing, right? And I show up in my like put together, thrown together costume and everything, and I ended up winning the contest. And I'm pretty sure the only reason I won was because my family was there. My sisters, my brother-in-law, and some of their friends. I think the only reason I won was because they were there and they were cheering me on. That dude showed up. I think he was just there with his wife and ended up getting second place because they based it on like cheers and stuff. Dang, it went out. Um, so for winning first place there, they gave me a $300 voucher that I could spend, and I ended up buying a little travel humidor and just random cigars. Right, that's kind of where I started. I was like, I don't know what I like, I don't know what to get into. Let me just experience a bunch of them. And looking back on it, I can't tell you. I think maybe one of them was like a Pepin. One of them might have been an HP Upman, but I could not tell you what the rest of them were. And I had a $300 coupon voucher or whatever, and I just went to town. I was like, give me one of those, give me 3 of those, give me 2 of those. I was like, what do you recommend? Asking the waitress or the lady that was working the register that night. Um, and yeah, so that's kind of where it started for me. Um, I didn't get more into it until, again, the pandemic, when everyone was starting to stay inside. Everyone was picking up a bunch of different hobbies. My 2 hobbies were whiskeys and cigars. So I really started like looking into cigar reviews. One of my favorite channels for cigar reviews, again, not a sponsor, not a promotion or anything, but like Cigars Daily. I love watching their cigar reviews. Or there's a couple other guys that are like, high end, high class cigar smokers, and it's fun to watch their stuff, but I'm not going to spend hundreds of dollars on like a single cigar. At least not at this point. Who knows? Maybe if this YouTube thing blows up, I might, get further into it, or who knows? Maybe I'll get, promoted some special cigars or something. I don't know yet. But during the pandemic, I started focusing in on what brands that I liked, and that's what I tell people who are looking to get into cigars is try a few different ones. Um, Maybe if you go to a cigar shop and you don't know what you're looking for, to ask what would go good with my palate. For me, I went in there saying, I like bitter tastes, I like darker tastes, I like bolder tastes. I'm someone who drinks like black coffee, right? I might add sugar and sweetener and stuff like that, but like, I like black coffee, I like bolder, bitter tastes. So I was pointed into the direction of Romeo and Julieta, Romeo y Julieta, the I think it's the like San Pedro, or um, the Romeo cigar, which is like this big, thick, black, peppery cigar, and like that cigar is what pushed me into delving into cigars. So after watching some videos on like cigar reviews, and after watching other people talk about their experiences and what they do and the do's and don'ts and everything, um, I really narrowed my favorites, I guess you could say. I narrowed down the companies that I really like, which is Romeo y Julieta and Drew Estate. Um, there's plenty of good companies out there. Don't let me discourage you from trying anything else or make you think that any other company is bad. But those are the 2 that I really like, that I will vouch for. That if I have a friend who's like, take me to go get a cigar, let's try some, I'm like, here, try either this company or this company, and then we can kind of go from there. Do you want bold? Do you want dark? Do you want leathery? Do you want earthy? what is it that you're trying to get out of the flavor profile of this cigar? Like the one I'm smoking right now, even looking on the review. So the Papas Fritas is a Liga Privada cigar by Drew Estate. It is a 4.5 inch by 44 gauge cigar. They come in these, nice little boxes, about 25 in a box. You can buy them singles or whatever, but for like a small, short cigar, they're still like $8. Whereas a box, I think I spent like $150 for 25. So you can do the math and figure that out if that's a deal or not. But something like this, this is a Connecticut broadleaf Maduro, with a Nicaragua and Honduras filling. And this is kind of the cigar that I point everyone towards. It's a short cigar, it's a shorter smoke. You can have some cigars that'll last you an hour and a half. Usually this cigar will last me like 20 minutes. I'm not smoking as much because I'm, talking and everything, but this is a good intro cigar. It's, for its money, for what you're paying for, it's a good cigar. I tell everyone, it's not too dark. It's a nice, smooth. It's not flavored or anything. But going off their website, just reading what Drew Estate has to say about this, this is the Liga Privada Papas Fritas cigar, which was crafted for the Liga Privada smoker who just wants or needs a short smoke. Handcrafted at, again, a 4.5 by 44 size format, these little pigtail cigars pack a punch of flavor. Let's see. What else can I find out about them? Oh, a cool thing, if you ever pick up a box of cigars, in Drew Estates, they like to give you like a little background and a description of what you're smoking. So on here it says the Liga Privada Unico series, which that is the brand for like their Unico series. I believe that's like a limited run series. Like there's not a whole bunch of them. I mean, these are pretty easy to find and pick up. But this says handcrafted entirely from only the Chaveta cuts of our extra dark broadleaf Kappa and the rare grade A1 filler tobacco trimmings created by the production of our famed Liga Privada blends. These Coronas are most certainly the finest Tripa Corta cigars ever made. What they may lack in beauty, they more than make up for in satisfying flavor and aroma. They are spicy, rich, and super delicious. Enjoy. And I couldn't agree more. They're a really good cigar. A lot of people that I have like introduced to cigar smoking, I've pushed them towards this. Like, hey, here's a short one. It's not gonna ruin your taste buds. You're not gonna wake up angry tomorrow because your mouth has that like cotton mouth feeling or anything. It's a good smoke. It's a good cigar. If you're looking to get into cigars, I would push you towards this. It's a good starting point. So yeah, that's kind of my introduction into cigars. That's kind of my introduction into whiskeys and everything. Now I kind of hop around from cigar lounge to cigar lounge. There's a ton. I mentioned in Midland there was only like two at the time, maybe 3, some that I didn't even know about. But there were 2 that I would frequent there. But like here in the DFW area, there are dozens, and I'm blown away by like the kind, friendly people that I meet at all these cigar lounges. One of my favorites to go to now is Cigars International. In DFW, they have 2 different locations. The one that I go to is the North Fort Worth one. I've heard complaints about the other one, but I don't want to get into that. I haven't been there, so I can't judge for myself. But the North Cigars International is like one of my favorite cigar lounges to go to. They've got like an indoor section, an outdoor section. They've got a full bar, and a great variety of cigars to choose from. And at that one, if you find a deal on Cigars International online, they will honor that promotion or discount or whatever. You know, they might not all, depends on who's selling you the box or whatever, but I've showed them like, hey, online you're selling it for this. Can I get it for that? And they're like, yeah, sure, we'll take off, that $20 or whatever. Great cigar place, one of my favorites to go to. Like I said, a huge selection. If I ever get the chance, I take friends and family to go over there. It's a good time. I like that location. Um, if if you're new to cigars, if you're new to that world, there are kind of a few things that you need to pick up and whatnot. Um, there, a big question is like, where do you start? What would you look for? What do you do whenever you're getting into cigars? And I try to tell people, I try to tell friends, like, hey, go with me, and I'll kind of explain through stuff if you feel embarrassed asking like workers or whatever working there. I'll kind of explain what I know, which I'm not the greatest. I'm not the I'm not the know all end all be all for cigars or anything, but I'll kind of tell you what I've tried and what notes I get from them. But if you want to go out and get cigars, I try to tell people like go kind of off of like a flavor profile. Like I said, I'm someone who likes dark coffee, so I like bitter flavors and stuff like that. You might be someone who likes sweet and good flavors or sweeteners and stuff like that. So like for Drew Estate, they have the Deadwood Sister cigars, which are flavored cigars. There's I think 5 of them now. They just came out with a new one. Those are flavored cigars, so you might find something that is a good quality made cigar that is also sweet, unlike a gas station cigar, which is sweet, but it's machine made and like it's made on a press and whatnot. Whereas something by Drew Estate is going to be hand rolled and handmade and done with like precision and hand detail, and you're not going to get the same quality as you do from like a gas station cigar. So I don't know. The next time you go into a cigar shop looking for a cigar, talk to the employees and be like, hey, what do you recommend for this type of palate? I don't like this, I like this, and listen to them and go towards their recommendations. Who knows? Maybe you might find something that not a whole lot of people have heard of. But what I also recommend is if you're going for the first time to get a few cigars, try and buy 2 to 5 of each kind that you're picking up. One of the things that I didn't focus on whenever I started was, or something that I didn't realize rather, is that sometimes, you know, getting the cigar from the shop, bringing it home, not putting it in my humidor right away so it's not staying humid, it's kind of drying out. I was ruining a few cigars, which kind of put me off of a few brands at first. Um, Not knowing that I was ruining it, or not knowing that I hadn't given it enough time to get to the humidity that I like or whatever. Um, I have a humidor. I keep my cigars roughly around the 66% humidity. They recommend, or it's like a thing to keep them like between 65 and 70 in that range. So my preference is keeping my cigars at like a 66% humidity. And I would pick up one stick of different brands and then bring them home and be like, oh, well, this stick is dried out. This is an awful company. I don't think I'll ever buy from them again. Um, which was kind of a bad way to start off, a bad way to like think about brands and like what they're producing and making and stuff. So now I try to get minimum 2 or 5 of each stick that I'm picking up. I focus on 2, but because you take 5, you put them in your humidor or wherever you're gonna keep them. I've seen people put them in like little um, plastic trays or whatever with like a little humidor pack or whatever. Um, or people that have like humidors. You take all your cigars and you put them in there and you leave them in there for a week, 2 weeks, or whatever. Over time they're going to get to the humidity that you want, and maybe that first one you pick up, maybe it was rolled wrong, maybe it was too tightly packed, so you're not getting a great draw off of it. That shouldn't be your defining factor of whether or not you like that brand or that cigar. You know, try one as soon as you come home, leave the rest in there, and maybe next week pick up another one, try that one. If it's just as bad as the first one, or if it's better than the first one, try another one. Give it time, give cigars a chance, right? um, who knows, you'll find some that are great one week, maybe the next week they used a different cut of tobacco. Who knows, right? But I would recommend, if you're going out to buy cigars, get a couple and keep them for a while before you smoke them. Maybe smoke that first one right away and then give it time before you smoke a few more. And like I said, try different brands. There's HP Upman, there's Cohiba, there's thousands upon thousands of different cigar brands, and what might be a great profile for me, what may be a great taste. Who knows? Maybe someone watching this hates Papas Fritas. They're total advocates against Drew Estate. Who knows? But give them a shot. Try them out. Try out other companies. Romeo y Julieta is another great company that I personally enjoy. So pick up a few different sticks. Usually, if you go to a cigar lounge, they will have matches and lighters there for you. They'll even usually some cigar shops will ask you, do you want it cut? Are you going to be smoking this here with us? Would you like us to get you a table with a drink or something while we cut this for you? If you want, you can have them cut it there. They're usually pretty good at it. Usually they've got like a box or a machine or something that they can give you a quick cut and then hand it off to you and put it in your bag and send you on your way. But if you want to pick up your own, there are a couple different cutters that kind of do different things. So over here, I something else that I wanted to talk about was different cutters. You have straight cuts, which is what I use today to give you a nice, flat, clean cut on the end. You know, this one's going to give you a flat, straight cut. For cigar purists, they say that this is like the best, purest way to cut your cigar, because this is how it was intended to be cut. Because the way that it's rolled is how the smoke is going to go through and it's going to reach your taste buds. This is like the purest form. You're getting smoke and heat transferred between all the leaves, all the rolls, and everything, and that's how it's going to hit your taste buds, and that's like the purest form. Man, it went out again. Which, you know, is a good way. Normally, it is not my preferred method of cutting a cigar. For me, I get nervous that I'm going to cut too much and the cigar is going to start unraveling. You know, I can't tell you the amount of times that I've straight cut a cigar too deep, or, you know, been too many TX whiskeys in and miscut or misaligned or cut at an angle, you know. For me, it's a good cut, but it's not the easiest, especially if you're not paying attention, or if you're a little too buzzed or just not focused, right? It's not always the best cut for me. And so something you can do about that is get different types of cutters. So like this one is a V cut. I don't know if you can see it on there. I can't see the screen, so I don't know what's in focus and what's not in focus. But this, if you can tell, has like a V shape in it, which is going to cut your cigar differently. It's got a backstop, like a rest, so you cannot cut this too deep. You can't cut this too far. It's only going to allow you to cut off so much of the cigar, and it's going to give you a V cut. And you might be asking, you know, what is the purpose of a V cut? Well, kind of like with the straight cut, you know, it's that whole flavor draw going all the way up until the very end. Well, with something like a V cut, that V shape is going to direct the smoke at a finer like angle, and it's going to push it differently to your taste buds, right? You know, I'll you know, why not? I'll recut this, showing a V cut. So I'll take it, I'll place it. I can't cut too deep, even though I've already cut this. But you can see it gives like a notch in it, which if I hadn't cut this already, that's all that would be protruding, right? That's all that would be coming. So it's like a mouthpiece where the air is only coming out that section, and if you have it directed at your tongue, that's how your taste buds are going to receive it. That flavor is going to go directly onto your taste buds. So that's why something like a V cut exists. My personal favorite, which directs that smoke even more, and to me is like the easiest cut out of all of them, is a punch cut. So this is a little tool that extends out, and it's just it's like a hole punch, right? So you take the end of the cigar and you give it like a little hole punch, and to me, Super easy, really hard to mess up. You know, I have this one, and then my everyday carry cigar lighter has that hole punch on the very bottom of it. And that's what I love to use. That's given me the most consistent results. It's easy. You just put it on, twist it, and give it a hole. And to me, I get the best results from that. You know, for me, that's my go-to. That's the one I like. Um, you know, try out different cuts. You know, if you pick up 3 different cigars of one brand, try a hole punch, try a V cut, try a straight cut. You know, and try them all at different times. I don't know, just you know, it gives you an idea of like how much goes into the world of cigars. There's a bunch of different cigars. There's a bunch of different methods. Um, you know, I heard of like Arnold Schwarzenegger who likes to dip a stick of wood into his tequila and then rub it all over his cigar. You know, some people like to do crazy stuff to their cigars. You know, it's an experience. It's something to try. It's something to, you know, if you can, get yourself like a book or like a journal and write down what you like. My wife actually, let me grab this. My wife gave me a cigar dossier, um, which allows you to write down. Sorry for the noise. Write down what cigars you've tried, and like, you know, here's my entries on like the Deadwood Sisters. You can take off the cigar band, glue it on, and write down what you had, how much it cost, did you like it, what rating would you give it. You know, there's different Drew Estate cigars and stuff like that. You know, if you're really wanting to get into the world of cigars, I highly recommend you get something like this, because, you know, if you try something and you don't try it again for months or maybe years, you can look back and be like, oh yeah, I had that. Oh yeah, I can't remember if I liked it or not. You know, do I want to spend money on a box, or do I want to get one to retry it? Or you know, there are some cigars that are really hard to come by, and you might not see it again for a long time. And it's like, oh, I really remember that cigar. I really enjoyed it. You know, um, let's see, like here when I tried this Hoya Silver, you know, it's a Cigars International purchase. It was $9 for a stick. Um, you know, it even says, it goes into like, what was the last thing you ate or drank before you had the cigar? And you know, at that time I had like a chicken pasta dinner or something, and you know, I wrote down comments on it. And, you know, this was a nice surprise of a cigar. This was a random pickup from a cigar store. You know, it has a great drag pull, a light earthy flavor with a lot of smoke output. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. You know, something like this, if you're really wanting to get into it, is a great pickup if you want to follow your journey and like really get into it. You know, they even make the same thing for whiskeys. You know, you can go to whiskey tasting events, or you can go to cigar tasting or cigar and whiskey tasting, and it gives you a chance to like write down what you like, what you don't like, you know, and it helps you remember and kind of learn along your journey. So like, one of the things that I really struggle with in both worlds, in cigars and whiskey, is the flavor profiles, right? You know, I don't have the greatest sense of smell, but I feel like my taste buds are pretty good. I can pick out notes and stuff like that, but it's hard to describe those notes and those flavors, or really remember them and call them back. You know, and something like, you know, those dossiers are a great way to like write it down and memorialize them so that you can pick it up and look at it again later and remember it. So yeah, that's kind of all I really had today. You know, um, yeah, that's kind of all I had. Just brief introduction into both worlds. Um, I in my mind I kind of have an idea of like doing this podcast where I go to different locations and film the podcast there and try a cigar from different places and maybe ask employees what their favorite cigar is and try it out, or who knows where this is going to go. I would really like to do that though. Is where I'm working is like downtown Fort Worth, and I'm surrounded by at least two cigar shops there. And I think it'd be really cool to like sit down and like do a podcast from there, or I've got a few buddies that are into cigars, and maybe I have them on and let them talk about their journey, and how they got into cigars or whiskey or whatever. But as for today, the Papas Fritas cigar, great cigar, light, short smoke. Like I said, I've been talking this whole time, so I haven't really. And it went out again. I'm gonna set that down. Great cigar. Great for newcomers into the cigar world. I highly recommend it. TX whiskey. Like I said, if you ever get the chance to go to the TX whiskey distillery here in Fort Worth, I highly recommend it. I was taken on their little tour or whatever for I think it was Father's Day, and I had a great time. I'd highly recommend it. Great, kind of almost sweet vanilla caramel whiskey. Great stuff. Great combination. Yeah, that's all I have for today. Drop a comment. Was I too scatterbrained, or is this something you're interested in? Should I do more of these? Should I go more into the review? Should I go more into the like backstory of cigars or whatever? Should I tell you more about myself and further explain my journey and whatnot? Or help me out, give me ideas, throw them at me. In my last mixed drink episode, I had mentioned that I had just started a new job, and I'm kind of struggling trying to figure out a work-life balance, right? I'm enjoying my new job. I like it and everything, but I am mentally drained by the time I get home. So for me to come home and like think about editing or think about a new drink to make is kind of getting rough. Something like this, I can just talk and drink and smoke and just explain and ramble on. I think this might be a better format for me, but who knows? Let me know if you like it. Let me know if I should continue with this. Yeah, drop a comment down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and follow. Turn on that notification bell so you get updates to the next time I drop an episode. And let me know of a name for this podcast. Like I said, I think I want to call this The Other Side of the Bar. You're where I'm standing whenever I'm making drinks, so you're looking at what I'm seeing. I've got all these masks up here, so it's almost like I have an audience looking in on me, which kind of helps in a weird way. These masks, I actually inherited from my deceased grandmother. She was someone near and dear to my heart. But in her will, and like in her writing of her will, I asked her, I was like, I don't know if anyone else in the family has asked, but if you could leave me anything, I would love to have your masks. They come from all over the world, from all of her travels, some from my travels. You've got some from Italy, you've got some from Japan, you've got some from India and Africa. She traveled all over the world. I've, had my fair share of traveling, and I've picked up a few along the way, but this is what I'm looking at. And, I've got my dragon collections over here. So, what I want to call this is like the other side of the bar or something along those lines. So give me some ideas for a name for the podcast. Um, yeah. Remember to drink responsibly. Cigar smoking is a choice, and you need to make that choice for yourself, whether if it's something that you want to get into, if you're interested in, and is it worth it to you. So smoke responsibly, drink responsibly, and other than that, have a great rest of your day, night, evening, whenever you're watching this. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.